I wrote a medical malpractice book in 1978. It's unpublished because I was almost killed. And I had a letter from the FBI, June the 23rd of 79, ongoing investigation, national security involved. Well, April Fool Day of 80, I was almost killed. I went to the emergency room at West Paces Ferry, and I had antifreeze in me. I didn't know what was put in me. I went for a tox screen because I knew I was dying to see if it could be diluted. Instead, I was met with Dr. Shelton, a prominent doctor in Atlanta back then, and Dr. Paul Beecham. And when I walked out, uh, it was pretty much hell, and that was on the 5th without the tox screen, without any of the medical that's supposed to be done, urology, uh, none of it was done for a reason. They meant for me to die. My ex-husband came back from California, and he'd never been there. And I was stuffed in a car and illegally taken back across the state line by Lina Dempsey, mother of the twins, Peggy and Carl. This is me in 1941. I was kidnapped from Buckingham Palace and brought to Moulton, Alabama. And she had twins that were illegitimate. She had killed them. Well, she'd killed one of them, Carl, and 2 weeks before I was put there, the other one, the real Peggy, was fed to the pigs, and this is all true. So 2 weeks before I was kidnapped and put there, they planned it. It was Joe Kennedy, JFK flew in and out. He helped the Illuminati, the global government that calls itself the UN now, that controls everything. The Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Bilderbergers, Kennedys, part of my own family, Roosevelt, I could go on and on. All your presidents, Eisenhower, Truman, all of them, and their Secretary of States have all known about my kidnapping and what you did to Great Britain. I'm giving this because of Las Vegas. I'm going to show Larry Flint who was shot while I was doing the book. He even says I know who was responsible for his shooting. He mentions Dr. Congressman Larry McDonald. Mr. Flint was shot by a program shooter on March 6th of 78 while I was doing the book, living at Moonraker Apartments in Cobb County, Marietta, Georgia, and he was shot next door in Gwinnett County. And his attorney was killed. And I'm going to tell you why here, that they will not tell this. For one thing, it would be the people, this country, that's a part of it. And you think you're so well taken care of. If it's ever told, it would, and it's the only way it stops, let me put it that way. I didn't find out until one of the doctors I had written about, Larry McDonald, went down in that KAL that the Russian MiG shot it down when it veered into their airspace. Now then, he was supposed to have gone down with 260 plus passengers. And President Nixon, former President Nixon, who was a crook in Henry Kissinger, as a part of this whole sick game, Nixon was taken off. So they knew it was going down. Now, this is my dad, Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. She married a double, a look-alike. There was more than one, and they became the illegal Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Now then, all the dirty antics he did and crimes were, a lot of people thought my father. Sir Winston Churchill burned my birth certificate, burned my father's marriage to my mom, Claudia O'Keefe, from sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe from Madison, Wisconsin. The day, because of an addendum that was legal to my father's forced abdication, he wouldn't do is the New World Order, the Rockefellers, the Illuminati, told him to. So they took him down. Then he kidnapped me, his daughter. They took his identity. My mom and dad were married. They always stayed married. I know they were both alive October the 20th of 86 when I came to Roanoke, Virginia. Now I'm going to skip over to, I was flown out to Mr. Flint's in that campaign to replace Larry McDonald, Congressman Doctor. By the way, I want to say that the pilot, you can do this with the pilot or anyone. You can program them. Now, you can put up all the security you want to. You're not going to see programming on this pilot that was programmed to fly off course where he'd be shot down by the Russian MiG. You're not going to see Mr. Paddock, who is being called all these names for the Las Vegas shootings. You're not going to see his mind. If you did, you couldn't see. It's invisible. All right? It's hard to prove. Now, this family covered up the kidnapping, and they made my life nothing but a living hell. And they covered up the deaths and murders of the twins. Now, I want to go to this, talking about the reason they're not going to tell it mainly is what you've done to Great Britain and to my dad, Mom, and me. It's hideous, and my country, Great Britain, and to the Germans. Now, you ask the motive of Mr. Paddock. First of all, his name's Paddock, and his first name, Stephen, and how it's spelled, and his brother Eric Paddock. It is so in the timeline in the city that Mr. Paddock lived in. And if you go to Dallas, you're going to see the city, a suburb is the same name. It's the timeline and everything. It's called instant messaging. And it's cryptic. And you need the codes to decode. You need the timelines, etc., background, and to know the meaning. Just like in the wars, the cryptic coded messages. In 1984, an FBI agent, Noe, retired, came into an Exxon convenience store, gas station, Grottoes, Virginia. I was made homeless and everything after then. I mean, what they did to me and my sons, who are heirs after me, are so sick. But anyway, he furnished me a car for a year, but I had no money. I had no money for gas. So you got a hustler car, leased by Larry Flint, sitting behind a convenience store gas station. I'm pumping gas for a living in a trailer. Ask yourself what makes sense about that. Okay, maybe that's a flag going up. What's wrong with this picture? So now then, Noe was a former FBI, retired. And by the way, I remembered later that I had met him, that he had been in working for Brown Engineering. This is the space industry in Huntsville, NASA, that supposedly moved to Houston. But I'm going to have to hurry or I won't get this up. Anyway, this is him that's talking to me and supposed to retire in Grottoes, Virginia, with a hustler car behind that I can't use because I don't have gas. So he tells me on one occasion, he said, they've made it, and he meant the FBI, so ridiculous and ludicrous that people know you're telling the truth, but they are given the chance to help you or run away. Well, you can't believe the people that run away and hate my guts and call me every name in the book. I didn't commit the crime. This country did, and there's some good people here that did try to help me, but 99.99% didn't. And they are not the way you see in Las Vegas. If you had told the truth, your media, which is controlled by the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, they've known about my kidnapping and the takedown of my father from day one. And they've certainly known about the mind control murders, the media here in Roanoke, Virginia, everything. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you, and this is a book I don't have, but I did get it later when a church gave me, Implantable Biochips, and the name of the book was by Mars, Project Lucid, Lucid. And they're telling part of what I was saying. But this is Timothy McVeigh, and he was put to death. He was programmed. He told you here that the Army implanted a chip up his buttocks, and this is illegal. William, that everybody loves, and they're supposed to have a chip in him to make sure he doesn't get kidnapped. Well, it was me that got kidnapped, and the Brits have been and Germans have been my sole caring. They have for me. Now then, I want to go back to the instant messaging. It's just another way. I mean, the minute it happens, you can decode it. So let's see if there's something else on this side that I was going to write about. They could run away, and they run away. So I know there was probably some more I was going to put on here, but the motive for the shooting is not in the mind of Stephen Paddock. It's in the minds of the people that programmed him. And now MK Ultra you can look up, but I'm not saying that MK Ultra did this. They probably were a part of it. I don't know. I know who did this. And I can't dislike them. I probably wouldn't be alive, you know. I've really told you on here who did it. So it's up to you, the people. I can assure you that I did not get the love and caring that the people in Las Vegas did. And I told you all about this. I told you about my kidnapping and the crimes and torture that were done to me and my children, my country, my mom and dad. Let me remind you, my mom was an American. And you know, look the way she was deleted just like my dad. I'm sure there's other things I wanted to tell. Some of your murders that I've often told about, these are recent. There's a list, and when I was flown out to Mr. Flint's, he mentioned that list. Now, you know, during this Vegas, there's a lot more to it because they've encompassed everything in this. They mention... well, if I don't, anyway, I'm about to run out of time. I guess that was about it. It's enough for you to digest. I've told it over and over. So I'm going to go, I guess. And let me put this at the last. You know, the Illuminati kidnapped me. I didn't know anything about the Illuminati till I found out about my real name and kidnapping after I was flown out to Flint's. And I know now that the media always knew it, but they're Rockefeller control that kidnapped me. They're not going to tell it. The thing is, if you decode the name Stephen Paddock, okay, but you have to have background on that. It fits very well into all this, but you can decode the paddock, and that's where horses are kept. And you'll tune this out because that's exactly what the FBI agent said. They've made it so ridiculous. Okay, Trump, President Trump, trumpet in the Bible. But there's a lot more that would go. I mean, you can't just contrive all of this. I mean, there's some kind of higher power. Man, you might as well forget it on the planet Earth because they put this whole mess together. I don't believe there's a government on this planet that has that much power. They may have. But I want to mention this. It's so widespread, and Snowden tried to tell you, and look what they've done to him. He's supposed to be in Russia now and hiding or whatever from the United States, and it's just ridiculous. I can't say it enough, so I'm just going to get off. But the United Nations is your New World Order. When they did the illegal treaties and took my father down and kidnapped me, installed George VI. Remember the movie The King's Speech that made a hero out of him and then Elizabeth the Queen? Friggin' lies. They're illegal. They went along with the Illuminati, the global government, and it's sickening. My father took a stand, and look what they did to him. And I guess I'm going to go on that. There were some other things I wanted to say, but I guess that'll have to do. The Aurora, Colorado, I think the thing that gets me is Congressman Gabby Gifford from Tucson. That shooting was a mind control shooting, and these can be proven too. Her husband, the twins, I want to mention this. Her husband was a twin, Mark Kelly, and Scott Kelly, his twin. They were astronauts. And I'm going to leave it at that on that one. It's throughout all of it. And this one in Las Vegas is totally, it encompasses all of it. So I don't know. What I want to say, and that skipped my mind or whatever, was the brother Eric. And by the way, the name Eric is all through this mess. But when he spoke to the media right after they were bombarding him, he made the statement, it's almost like an asteroid hit us. You know, they are programmed and they don't know it, so how can they fight against it? I totally think that comment was meant to be. And then you couple it with, what was it, the woman that Mr. Paddock, Stephen Paddock, was supposed to, they brought back from the Philippines. She says something about him getting up at night and screaming, "Oh God, oh God." I want you to think about all this. I don't know about Revelations. I don't know if this is not just a big concocted. I know who I am, and I know I was kidnapped, and all that's true. Now, whether it's Revelations, I don't know. I do know that the Illuminati are in power, and everything is global, and it's the UN, and you're in for a shock. Everybody thinks it's okay. They'll be sucked in. They already are, and didn't care about me or Great Britain except for a handful of you. So I've told you, the motive is not in the mind of the programmed person, and Mr. Paddock was certainly programmed. That's the reason you can't find the motive. He wasn't mentally ill, which they've used the mental illness when, just like James Holmes of the Aurora, Colorado. He was locked up in the mental, fed psychotic drugs. He's not psychotic. He's programmed. He's a victim, just like the Virginia Tech student that shot 32, then killed himself. They're ordered to kill themselves. They can't stop it. If they went to a doctor or went to a mental health professional, they'd be locked up and given psychotic drugs. That is the worst kind of, that's not medical malpractice. That goes into a whole different area of torture and labeling a person so that the label always stick when it's untrue. I'll go with that.